Hey everyone, it's me, Thinkafurr, and I'm back with yet another tangent to tell. This time we turn our attention to Breath of the Wild 2. Finally, Thinkers, the wait for Breath of the Wild 2 news is over. With the release of Nintendo's E3 2021 teaser for Breath of the Wild, there's so much to discuss now, and speculate upon, which is exactly what we're going to be doing in this mini-series. So let's turn our attention skyward and get to thinking, because it's time for a thought process. So the first and probably the most visually obvious thing to point out is Link's outfit. In the teaser, we can clearly see Link has an outfit that is very similar to one of the outfits Link has in Skyward Sword. Next up, we can see that Link has a falling mechanic that's very similar to the falling mechanic we see in Skyward Sword. Personally, I'd be very interested to see if they are in fact implementing this as a game mechanic, or if it's just a cutscene. Whether or not this is just something we see in a cutscene or an actual feature in gameplay mechanics, it's a very strong and clear reference to Skyward Sword. With these two very overt references to Skyward Sword, it does raise an interesting question. Could this potentially hint Breath of the Wild 2's timeline placement? The main game of Breath of the Wild has references to Skyward Sword, but it also has references to all the other games, thus making its placement kind of ambiguous. And that was intentional by the developer's part, but I feel like we should leave the question of whether or not Breath of the Wild 2 is placed anywhere near Skyward Sword maybe out in the open here, because it is worth exploring, and there is a lot more similarities than just what I've said so far. Quite literally, in somewhat of an ironic twist, if we turn our attention to the sky, visibly we can see floating islands. Now, these islands potentially may hold dungeons or settlements, maybe even hidden chests with items for Link to loot. It's almost like Nintendo is taking us back to the skies, back to where it all began. Now, for new Zelda fans who came to Zelda after Breath of the Wild's release, you might have missed Skyward Sword, but this is the game where the Master Sword, also known as the Goddess Sword, was created, and the video game's title, Skyward Sword, is a reference quite literally to the Master Sword itself, as the Master Sword has an ability called Skyward Strike. Now, this is a very clear parallel. The fact that Breath of the Wild 2 has floating islands, just like Skyward Sword does, really does show a strong possibility of a return to the skies, and this opens the door to other questions. If Link really is returning to the skies, to follow in the footsteps of the first chosen hero, why is he returning? Did something happen to the Skyward Sword, aka the Master Sword? We know definitely that something terrible happens to Link, as we clearly see his arm being, well, badly damaged. Gotta keep this family friendly. Anyway, it's clear that we won't get any answers until the game's release, but if you're interested, my friend Zeal is gonna be covering more on these topics later on. Link in the top right corner. Now, there's two final things to bring to the table in my speculation or teaser analysis. In the main game of Breath of the Wild, we see goddess statues that are very similar to the ones we see in Skyward Sword. Now, given that Skyward Sword was, as I said earlier, the genesis of all Zelda games, it really is a strong possibility that Breath of the Wild 2 may just reach back to that part of the timeline. Either that or something else, like Link just walking in the footsteps of his ancient ancestor. But I do find it very suspicious notice that Skyward Swords Remaster is being released first before Breath of the Wild 2. Maybe I'm just looking too much into that fact, but who knows? It could be something, it could be nothing. This video is all about speculating, and I think honestly I've done enough of that. So as for Breath of the Wild 2 and Breath of the Wild's timeline placement, well, I'll leave that for all you wild thinkers to decide. And the same goes for the fate of the Master Sword, aka the Skyward Sword. Who really knows? Maybe I'll come back to that in another video, but please, let me know what you all think in the comments down below, thinkers. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, go check out the merch store down below. Also, huge shout out to Zeal's channel and Kotlol's channel over at Joy Charged Gamers. Be sure to hop on over to their channel and show some support. Also, since sharing is caring, be sure to go and check out my partner and channel artist's artwork over on Instagram at ElfSpringArt. Phew, with all that said and done, I'm gonna go and record the next video. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!